to our amazing bagpipers. Good evening. My name is Rosemary Behane, and on behalf of Eagle Scout candidate Stephen Giammona, I wish to extend a warm welcome to all of you. Senator Elaine Phillips, Mayor Mike Honorato, and trustees Barbara Arcieri, John Egan, Bill Grogan, and Carol Schaffenberg, Stewart Manor Fire Chief Fred Powell, and the members of the fire department, the Nassau County Police, both regular and auxiliary, Scoutmaster Mike McGoldrick, and members of Boy Scout Troop 134, Monsignor Tom Harold of the Church of St. Anne, project volunteers, supporters of this memorial, friends, neighbors, and especially members of the Giammona family. Thank you for your presence here at the dedication of this beautiful memorial. I am deeply honored that Stephen asked me to be a part of this ceremony. Thank you, Stephen. September 11th, 2001 was a dark, horrific day for our nation and for many of us personally. But out of the darkness and horror, there was light and hope. In the hours, days, and months that followed, there was a vibrant, living, pulsating sense of community and patriotism. We came together as a nation in a way I had never experienced before or since. It was expressed as, we are all Americans, we are united, we will support and care for each other and get through this together. Everyone was waving flags, donating where there was a need, and tying yellow ribbons. At events like this, we see that these sentiments and truths live on in the example of young people of this nation, like Stephen Giammona. Proudly, I have watched Stephen and many other Eagle Scouts of this wonderful village demonstrate the deep spirit of community, volunteerism, and the giving of oneself that we experienced as a nation after September 11th, 2001. It is in this same spirit that we dedicate this memorial this evening. I now ask Stewart Manor resident and friend, Madison Jervinko, to lead us in the Star-Spangled Banner. Please stand.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the brave and the home of the brave?
Very good.
Thank you, Madison. I would like to introduce former Stewart Manor Fire Chief and 9/11 volunteer, Tom Skinner, who assisted with the work for this memorial and who, with the Stewart Manor Fire Department, arranged to donate the World Trade Center steel you see here. Tom?
Thank you, Rosemary, Mayor Mike Honorato, and thank you, Stephen, for having me here tonight to discuss this steel and the history of it. Concerning the history of the steel, in 2009, Mayor Jim Kelly was reading an article from the New York Times concerning the steel at Ground Zero and the fact that they wanted to give this steel to parks, municipalities, fire departments, and police departments all over the country to memorialize and remember those who have passed on that day. So in 2009, Jim Kelly followed up on this, Mayor Kelly, and he sent in his applications, and in 2010 we were awarded, the fire department and the village, 2 pieces of steel. This piece of steel we see outside here is the second piece. After the steel was picked up in 2010 by Jim Kelly and 2 other firefighters in one of the chief's cars, we drove over to JFK Hangar 17, where they had all of the artifacts from Ground Zero. They picked up the steel and they brought it back here, and that's where it was stored until we started putting them on into the memorials and displays. In 2011, September 11th, on a 10-year anniversary, the village and the fire department had a memorial service and dedication ceremony where the steel was displayed at the country club and the memorial service. Shortly after, the mayor and the village board approved the building of a 9/11 memorial inside the doors of the village hall, right inside these doors over here. That's where the first piece of steel lies, and still lies there today with a plaque memorializing all of those that were lost on that day. A couple of years had passed, administrations, and the department wanted to take the second piece of steel and put it out here. And this is going back a ways, and there were other things going on in the village, and it was decided that we were going to put this steel inside the doors of the fire department. Well, thanks to everyone, Stephen came along with this great idea of building this memorial, and I guess he was the straw that pushed over the camel, and here we have this erected today. And I want to thank Stephen for his great job. Absolutely fantastic work. I'm in the business. This is a class act. His dad, thank you so much, Stephen, and all the volunteers that helped us get to where we are today. I mean, as you can see the pictures over there, we had a completely different look just about a year ago today. So, thank you, Stephen, very much. Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you, Dad, because I know you had a lot to do with it, and all the scouts that put their hands in. Thank you very much for all your efforts. Everyone stay safe. I have one more thing to say. Today we memorialize and we remember 9/11, September 11th. Since then, a lot of the volunteers, rescue workers that went down there have fallen sick, and a lot of them have passed away since due to 9/11 related injuries. I just want us all to keep those people, those workers, those volunteers, those firemen, cops, everyone else that were down there after the towers fell, because it's really not over. And I think that we have lost over 1,000 people of the tens of thousands that went down there to help out after those towers went down. And we're still losing lives today. We have to remember them, and we have to support them as best we can. Thank you. Have a great night. Everyone get home safe.
Thank you, Tom. I'd now like to introduce Mike Honorato, Mayor of the Village of Stewart Manor, who, along with the village board members, past and present, was very involved in the process of bringing this memorial to fruition. Mike?
Well said, Ro, and Tommy, our past chief, Tom Skinner, well said, thank you. Before I start and open up what I'm going to say tonight, I want to recognize the entire Giammona family. I'd like to mention and recognize Stephen's parents. Stephen, I'd like to recognize Mary Lou. I'd like to recognize Stephen Jr., obviously, who did the memorial, and of course his younger brother, Michael. Let's have a round of applause for that. I also want to thank all those who participated in this project, who helped make this thing a success. They did a great job. And immensely, I would like to thank our own Stewart Manor Fire Department for all their hard work, and they're always there 24/7. And for what they've done to bring this steel back home, back in Stewart Manor, we thank you. We thank our Fire Chief, Freddie Powell, and the rest of the crew. I thank all of you. Well, today, our hearts are heavy with each one of us, having a memory of that horrible, horrific, evil day 17 years ago. But today, our homegrown Eagle Scout, Stephen Giammona, gives us an opportunity to lift our emotions in a more positive direction. Looking at the work that Stephen has orchestrated provides us all with a feeling of community pride and accomplishment, and along with a feeling of goodness wiping out evil. As I was able to see the project progress, I witnessed a young man who displayed an impeccable character, one that projected purpose, dignity, and respect. It was Stephen's willingness to remember his Uncle Vincent, whom he never met, while at the same time thinking that this memorial would be a great idea for our community to share in the reflection of this horrible day. That overwhelmed myself and others with tremendous pride. The product of good parenting and a sound neighborhood environment are the staples that contribute to Stephen's fine, outstanding character. And I would like to applaud Mary Lou and Steve again for their inspirational parental work. And Stephen, it is your character as a young man that will guide you to be an extremely successful individual, making all of us in Stewart Manor extremely proud of you. So as we commemorate this beautiful memorial, we remind you, Stephen, that you have now made a permanent mark on our village, for which you, along with everyone else, can never forget. And today, I'm sure on this very somber day, the many who have perished, and particularly your Uncle Vincent, are smiling down today and saying, "Good job, Stephen. Well done. Thank you." On behalf of the village of Stewart Manor. Now, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce the next guest speaker, our State Senator, Elaine Phillips, who has done so much for our community and our village. She is a truly good friend of ours. It's proud for me to introduce our next State Senator again, Elaine Phillips.
So good evening, everyone. I have a few thank yous before I say a few words. So first, to Stephen, thank you. Where are you, Stephen? Over here. Thank you. Thank you. Over here. So Stephen, thank you for reaching out and inviting me, to your parents. Thank you for inviting me to the village of Stewart Manor, who you always welcome me here. I feel part of the Stewart Manor community, and that means a lot to me. And to all the veterans that are in the audience, thank you. Thank you for defending our freedom. Thank you for sacrificing and putting our lives ahead of your lives. So let's give the veterans in the audience a huge round of applause. And really, thank you to all. This is what community is all about, isn't it? It's coming together to remember. It's coming together to celebrate. And this is really, if this doesn't say what Stewart Manor is all about, I'd like to know what does. So congratulations. So today is a day to remember. It is a day to remember the courage, the bravery, and the sacrifice of so many individuals that lost their lives on 9/11. It's also a day to give thanks. I know for me, it's a day to give thanks that I made it home that day, that I was able to see my 3 daughters grow up and have lives of their own. But Chief Skinner said it. There are thousands and thousands of first responders, firefighters, police officers, law enforcement of all types, just individuals that went down on that pile, and either maybe they worked a day or maybe they worked months. And it is absolutely imperative that we don't forget these individuals, because these individuals had the courage, the bravery to go back there when we were all getting out of there. So let us never forget those individuals that gave their lives, but let's make sure that we never forget those individuals that are suffering today and may be suffering going forward because they were down on that pile for so long. To Stephen, thank you for bringing our community together. This is a beautiful, beautiful commemorative event that you put together. I congratulate you. I think this is a real tribute to our youth and always making sure that you carry the torch so we remember the events of 9/11. So thank you very much, everyone. God bless you, and God bless this great country we live in.
Thank you, Senator. It's now my honor to introduce Life Scout and Eagle Scout candidate, Stephen Giammona, who took on this monumental endeavor from his Eagle Scout project. Stephen began the work on this project by approaching the village 3 years ago while an 8th grader. At that time, he wrote the following to the board: "I'd love to give the village something to honor friends and family members who we've lost. I lived in Stewart Manor my whole life. I love living here and want to give back to my community." Well, Stephen, I believe you've accomplished what you set out to do in spades. Congratulations. I'm sure that your Uncle Vinny is proudly beaming at you at this very moment. Stephen.
Before I get started, I just want to thank the many members of this community and my own family who have helped with this project. So here we go. I want to thank the Village of Stewart Manor Mayor and Board of Trustees, so Mike Honorado. I also want to thank the Village of Stewart Manor Clerk Treasurer, Rosemary Behane. I want to thank the Stewart Manor Fire Department for allowing me to use the piece of steel that I have here today. I'd also like to thank the Stewart Manor Department of Public Works, Mr. Mark Robertson, who has been a huge instrumental part of this project, and also my mason, Kurt Burbank. I'd also like to thank Michael Parada, who donated the blue stone and the plaques that you see here today, Mike Judge, Antonia and Anthony from Ray Design and Imports, Mr. Mike Percy, Mr. Chris Dossie, DNA Concrete, Seville Concrete, Mr. Vincent Grasso, the Rendy family, Mr. Rick Stiles, Mr. Brian Kessler, Mr. Robert Frazier, and North Shore Monuments Inc., and of course my parents who have supported me every step of the way. Growing up, I didn't know a lot about my mother. To me, it was like any other day, except I would go to I'd go to a mass with my family. But at that mass, it wasn't just me, my brother Mike, and my parents. Well, Mike's extended family was there too. Grandmas, cousins, aunts. I was confused because I was used to seeing these people during holidays, formal get-togethers like Christmas or Thanksgiving. And during Christmas or Thanksgiving, we'd get together and we'd talk to each other. We'd watch movies together. We'd eat together. It was always a very positive occasion. But what I noticed was unique when we got together these days on September 11th was that it was very quiet. There wasn't the amount of talking that I remember from Thanksgiving or Christmas. And at some points, it almost seemed like people were upset. At a young age, I couldn't understand this. It was just so alien from how I've been conditioned to think when I'm around my family. And this is what I believe was my first true somber experience. As I got older, I started to notice a few things. The people crying, the pictures of loved ones, the memorial flags, and noticing these things, I started to ask questions. The original answers that I got were relatively vague. 3 main points were said. People got hurt, heroes came in to help those people, and my Uncle Vincent was one of those people. Now, I didn't know who this Uncle Vincent person was. I had only heard stories of my Uncle Vinny. I was confused as to why he wasn't at any of these family get-togethers, why he wasn't at Christmas, and why he wasn't at Thanksgiving. And I guess you could say I was confused and maybe a little frustrated. But through that frustration and me not knowing my uncle, kind of grew a fascination of sorts. I started to picture him as an idol, somebody I could look up to based on the stories that I would hear. Even though I never got to meet him, every time that I would ask a question, every time that I asked somebody to tell me a story, they get a very large smile on their face, and they go on and tell me about how much of a caring, charismatic, generous person he was, a loving father and husband. From me wanting to know my uncle, I started to pay attention more during these masses that I would go to every year, and try to piece together more of the events of September 11th. And one of the things that really struck me when I started to really understand was that my story, me losing my uncle, was not very unique, unfortunately. People would come up and they would speak about the experiences they had with their brothers, their sisters, their mothers, their fathers, their cousins, their aunts, their uncles. And I just pictured the confusion, the frustration, and the eventual pain, and the happiness that I had from trying to picture my uncle was multiplied by thousands. Thousands of people who felt exactly how I felt. Thousands of people's own personal Uncle Vinnies. This became the starting point of what I believe to be community. Now, this idea of community really wouldn't start developing in my head until I heard about the weeks following 9/11. Usually, when you're at these masses, you hear a lot about the people who did perish and their lives, and you also hear about the events that day, the stories that people share. You know, whether they were in the city, out of the city, they all remember seeing it on TV or receiving a phone call from a friend or relative. And what a lot of people don't mention, but one I was very fortunate to hear about from one of these masses, was that in the weeks following, people came together. They started treating each other nicer. There were no borders, there were no social cliques. Everybody treated each other as a neighbor. It was a true community. And in a small way, in a small jealous way, I wish I was a part of that. So I hope that through this memorial, which is dedicated to the friends and the family that we lost and their memory, I can try to emulate that sense of community that we had, of us getting together, becoming strong as one to support each other in all of our terrible losses. So even though I wasn't born during 9/11, I feel that I have a very unique take, and so do many other people of my generation. We're in a very unique position in that we didn't see the events unfold, and we had to try and figure things out for ourselves, and through that, try to understand how it made us feel. So I took what I felt about the importance of community and put it into this project. And through the help of this community, and many, many, many volunteer hours and Saturdays and weekdays, I was able to get this. I just want to reiterate how much the community means to me, how much they've given back to me. I would not have imagined that this memorial would turn out the way it did. Originally, I was going for a much smaller design, but over time, I guess you could call it in constructor's terms, scope creep. we got this beautiful memorial standing here today, and I really, again, cannot emphasize how strongly I feel about everybody coming together. A lot of this is donated material, and it is literally thousands and thousands of man hours that I could not have done by myself. So, for the last time, I do want to remind everybody that community is a very strong thing. And when we come together, we can accomplish great feats such as this. Thank you.
All right, everyone be seated. It's now time to cut the ribbon and officially unveil the memorial. So I'd like to ask all the village board members, Senator Phillips, Stephen, and all the members of Boy Scout Troop 134 to come right here by the red ribbon, please. Troop 134 will now perform a flag ceremony. The flag being flown tonight was flown over Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Excuse me. Sorry, we're unveiling the steel first.
What's your first name? Phillips?
Okay, now I ask Troop 134 to please come forward to perform the flag ceremony. As I was saying, the flag being flown today was flown over Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom on October 15th, 2011 by Resident Lionel Naradu of the United States Air Force. It represents the commitment of the men and women of the armed forces, the global war on terrorism, and the thousands who died on September 11th, 2001. The certificate that accompanied the flag read, "Let all who look upon this flag be reminded of their accomplishments and the steadfast devotion protecting the freedoms our flag represents."
bagpipers will play us out, but the memorial is officially open to the public. We welcome you all to please come, take a look. And also, there's a tent in the back. There are still pavers for anyone that hasn't purchased a paver that would like to be a part of it. Please see the tent in the back, or we'll have information at the Village Hall. Thank you all so much for coming. God bless America.